I've had a lot of questions about the exam packet, Chapter 6, Number 3, so let's talk that over. You can read the question, but the key is that we had been assuming for figure 6, with the figure number 6.2, we'd been assuming that Maria would find a job with the same pay after her spell of unemployment. Also, we've assumed she doesn't experience any psychological or social cost from being unemployed. So how would changing these assumptions change our analysis of her employment rent? So let's go ahead and tackle that. Let me do that in the next page here. So for this model, we have the hourly wage on the y-axis and the hours on the x-axis. This is dollars per hour. And I'm just going to build up this graph because that's part of the issue. Well, with the Corey context, you can build them up yourself, and that's what I would always do if you're struggling to understand. That's what I do when I struggle to understand one of their graphs. Just go panel by panel and see how it's put together. So let's mimic that process. So first off, if Maria just stays employed, she enjoys this $12 an hour salary into not perpetuity, but indefinitely. All right, so what happens? We're figuring out her unemployment rent. So let's go through the process of figuring out her employment rent. Well, first off, we start with the fact that, she'd rather be playing at the beach or something like that. So there's this $2 disutility from working. So while she's working, she's really she's netting $10 an hour net of that disutility of working. All right, so what's the rent? What would happen if she lost her job? And I'm going to change colors here to blue. If Maria lost her job, the assumption is that she'd be unemployed for 44 weeks, 1,540 hours, and during that time she wouldn't make any money, but she would she would not have to go to work, so she'd lose that she'd give up that disutility from working too. Presumably she'd go to the beach. She wouldn't have any money to spend, but she'd be at the beach. Anyway, so the presumption is, initially, if she lost her job, that's this blue line, and they double arrow it, she'd be making $0 in wages, but also giving up that $2 of disutility. And then the initial assumption is that she'd get her a job that paid her the same. And so when she started working again, initially they assumed that she'd be back to making $12 an hour. And under that assumption, her employment rent is this area, this shaded blue area, hatched blue area. And that hopefully by the time you get through that model, you understand that. That's the point of working through figure 6.2. So let's think of how this changing the two assumptions would change the analysis. So I'm going to go in green to do actually the problem. So far I've just been retracing the steps of figure 6.2. All right, well, one assumption is that one change in assumption is that instead of getting her old job, her old pay scale, when she returns to work after unemployment, she'd be making only $6 an hour. So that changes this path. If she's unemployed, yes, she's making $0 while she's unemployed. I guess I should do triple arrow just to make that clear. But when she comes off of unemployment, instead of making $12, she's making just $6. So that's a big change, right? And I don't have room to the right because it's on into indefinitude. But the fact is she'd be unemployed. She'd be employed again, but only at $6 an hour. So all this green area on out to the right, as far as we can think of, we don't have information on her expected spell of employment. between periods of unemployment. But the bottom line is there's just this big increase in employment rent that extends out to the right really far. And then when we consider the fact that being unemployed causes Maria a disutility equivalent to $1 per hour, well, instead of being unemployed and giving up the $2 an hour of disutility of working, well, now she's incurring a psychological cost of $1 an hour, by assumption of being unemployed. Well, that means the net effect of being unemployed is, yes, she doesn't have to go to work, so she gains $2 an hour, but she now experiences this $1 an hour worth of disutility. So the net savings and happiness, the not having to work but now having to endure being unemployed, the net effect is now $1 per hour. And so there's this additional employment rent of this skinny green rectangle while she's unemployed. So that's how you address problem 6.3 in the exam packet.